Welcome to Sweet Fingers, where the flavors of Jamaica come alive. Our talented chefs blend authentic Jamaican ingredients with a touch of love and passion. From tender oxtail stew to flavorful coconut shrimp to our snapper fish, we serve up the best of Jamaican cuisine. Whether you're looking for a taste of Jamaica or an unforgettable dining experience, Sweet Fingers is the place to be. Feel the rhythm, taste the spice, and immerse yourself in the vibrant Jamaican nightlife at our restaurant, where every night becomes a celebration of island flavors and unforgettable experiences. Come and experience the soulful flavors of Jamaica today. Nobody does it like Sweet Fingers, baby.
Are you ready to honor the legacy of my brother and hip hop legend Shock G and make a difference in the community? Show your support for the East Oakland Collective, EOC, by purchasing the new Shock G Humpty t-shirt designed by Shamari Smith. It's available at beatsforhope.com. My brother Shock G was a multi-platinum hip-hop pioneer and producer who was deeply committed to helping the community, culture, and music of his time. His vision for helping humanity was honorable and has inspired people to come together and see to those that need important attention and love. By purchasing the new Shock G Humpty t-shirt, you are supporting the EOC, which helps provide essential services in East Oakland. Together, we can make a difference as we honor Shock G's legacy and support our friends at the EOC. Get your Shock G Humpty t-shirt today.
Better go on. Go straight to the 510 Day video. First year.
So we're going to have to do one and two.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Word on the Curb. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Nita B, and my special guest today is my folks, Sean Tolliver, who I've known for decades. We've just been knowing each other out here and in the same circles, and find ourselves living through the same stuff. Sean, he's been unhoused himself. He's advocating for unhoused folks and has a lot to share. And we're gonna talk about the stuff we usually talk about, get his idea about stuff. But then I also want him to get later in the show. We're gonna talk about stuff that he's like specifically so knowledgeable about, and that is being disabled and navigating through these systems. And it's just a whole nother ball game out there if you're dealing with a disability and trying to navigate through stuff, and then add on top of that being unhoused. So we're gonna get into it. And what's up, DJ Igor? How's what it do?
What's happening?
Alrighty. 510 Day is coming, and in 3 days, I'm very excited. It's our 10th year.
Yeah,
And
3 days.
3
10
days.
days. 10th annual.
10th annual 510 Day.
Whoa.
Yep, we've been standing up against gentrification very publicly, and it's not your usual protest. It don't feel like a protest, but it is. Primarily because we refuse to take out permits. We refuse to work with the police when they show up. The city, the past couple of years, has been asking me, you need to fill out a permit. How do we partner with 510 Day? And my response to the city officials is put rent control on the board, and then that's how you can partner with 510 Day. Put a moratorium on gentrification. That's how you partner with 510 Day. But making us fill out permits and pay permits and fill out licenses and work with the police, that's not how you partner with 510 Day. And that's what makes it a protest. Like, we're not trying to, get down like that. We're actually upset with what the city's been doing. But do we have a little clip about the first annual 510 day? Just a little snippet of how we just started, and just to set off the day. This is kind of it's very organic, and that's how 510 day is. We super organic. We shoot from the hip, and it just keeps on growing on its own. And this was the very first 510 day, and you'll see the flavor of it. You'll see what happened. It was beautiful. And after we watch this video, throughout today's show, I'm gonna show snippets. Was that we got it right there? No volume. Oh no.
To the audio.
Well, what you see happening there is a freestyle session. You see that guy brought his trumpet.
Right. That's my partner.
Who is he? What's his name? But if you could hear the sound, it was cool. It was cool. Folks just did it old fashioned and got into a cipher. Yes, we had a beatboxer and folks started. There was a saxophone player out there too. There were some drummers out there, and it was beautiful.
Wow, that boy had the
It was
trumpet
beautiful.
like this, and he just going there like, what?
Right.
What it do?
That's lovely. So this year it's bigger, the biggest one we've had yet. There's going to be Afro Entertainment's going to be posted up near the Cleveland Cascade Stairs, and they set off at noon, and they'll just be playing music till 3 to 7, and then they're going to have an open mic from 3 to 7. If you want to perform at 510 Day, you want to get there at noon and sign up. This list will be open until it's full. And then further up, we're going to have graffiti arts. We got the TDK crew out there, and they're going to be painting live. Willie Mays, a.k.a. Marty, he's going to be having his barbecue. He's a member of TDK, but he's going to be barbecuing out there too. And Dome is going to be out there doing airbrushes with 510 Day. We still hear limited edition T-shirts. And so there's only a limited edition. If you want to get your T-shirt airbrushed fresh on the spot, that's where you want to go. Ashley Rose, she's a graffiti artist out here in Oakland. She's hosting a black book party, so all graffiti artists come out there with your black books. If you know, you know. And y'all going to get together and just be doing what you do right there on the lake. And right after that area, further up is going to be the Youth Are Our Future Zone. They got their own stage. They're going to have a bunch of youth organizations ranging from high school to young adults. And there'll be some programming out there too of young folks from Oakland who will be showcasing their talents. And for the little ones, we're going to start off that stage with Miss Emily Butterfly. She's a puppeteer, and she'll be doing a puppet show. We have the housing justice area where all the housing issues, whether it's about homelessness or tenants' rights or forming real estate cooperatives or, trying to figure out how to basically solve this problem. They're going to be out there in the pergola, and we're going to have a couple of panels on the grass. Bring a blanket. We're going to do it old-fashioned way, outdoor school. And we're going to have just bring a blanket, come sit on the grass. We're going to have some folks who are experts and doing this work, kind of share their ideas and have a discussion about two things. One, how do we solve this homeless crisis and this affordable housing emergency? And the second panel we'll have is going to be on how do we upgrade the quality of life of people in the encampments, as well as upgrade the quality of life and the services in the shelter system. And then, Grand Avenue and Lakeshore are going to both be cracking with all the vendors and social justice organizations. On the grass behind the Grand Avenue Market, we're going to have a wellness zone where you can get your yoga on, get your crystal vibrations on, sip some tea if you're into that. And then further up on the grass, and you go closer to On's Burger, there is going to be a comedy stage. And that starts at noon, and we'll be going on for a little bit. And then all the way over on Fairyland is the Black Fae Day area. And that's where all things of the Black diaspora that is mystical and magic and fantastical is going to be over there. You can go make some fairy wings and do some like mystical stuff over there. And then we got 2 other pop-up zones that we're not promoting. You just got to be there to find out what's going to happen. We're not promoting the stuff that's going to happen over there, but it's all beautiful. And so one thing is, like, a lot of people wonder, like, who puts on 510 Day? I'm one of the founders, and my organization, The Village, and my business, the Lumpia Ladies, we organize, we promote, and we actually fund 510 Day. But there's a few other organizations that have been involved. One of the groups is Courage, Communities United for Restorative Justice, for youth restorative justice. And they throw down, they organize, they help organize the youth area. And they help this year. They're helping fundraise. Actually, they're paying for all the security this year. That's the biggest. The security and the porta potties are like really our biggest expenses. Y'all need to be safe, and we don't deal with the police, so we have security teams in the community come out, and you also need somewhere to go to the bathroom. And there really aren't any bathrooms at Lake Merritt. So those are the two things we make sure get covered. But I wanted throughout today's conversation, want to take breaks here and there to highlight some of these organizations that help throw down for 510 Day, as well as highlight a couple of the organizations that are going to be out there. We really want to encourage people to use that day to plug into the people who are doing work 365 days a year. 510 Day is a day for all of us to come together, but we also create a situation where you can find out and learn about and connect with organizations that you may not know about, that are doing work in the community to make sure that we are in the future of Oakland, that the future Oakland includes us, and that Oakland is vibrant and thriving and safe, and a place where we can live well. And so those organizations that be out there, they're out there for you. So plug in, get active, find out what's going on, and do something for the community with other people, so you don't have to do it by yourself. But could we check out the little video on 5 Years of Courage? This is one of the organizations that's been down with 510 Day. They joined up in 2017, the second year of 510 Day, and they've been, throwing down strong ever since. And just want to let folks know, put a face to and a name to some of the groups and people involved with putting out this very unique protest party for the town.
What education is about, locking kids in. More change, there's not enough change. They want to prep young folks from being locked up.
This is just the beginning. This location, this area that's identified, will not only be a part of the injunction, but it will also be the intense focus of federal, state, and local law enforcement.
Gang injunctions all across the board, all the research indicates that they do not reduce crime. They do not prevent crime. What they are effective tools for is displacement and gentrification.
This injunction is just another example of an incarceration response. We've been down this road. If you guys don't want more young people's blood in your hand, the choice is yours and the time is now. You guys need to deauthorize these gang injunctions.
I am resistance.
Seeking the truth and seeking right through their costumes. Who know when the mainstream news crews do interviews, they human cartoons. Just paper thin, ink and imagination, man's creation, more like subliminal training or political campaigning. And the nation's opinions daily swaying with justifications of slayings. I wonder why does it coincide with the high rise of the homicides that we facing? Deterioration of education, it takes a backseat to world domination. That's why we hustle in the backstreet, plus even pack heat just to eat no exaggeration. On the front lines, that's where they station our bloodlines to die. When today right here in the Western Hemisphere, they still living in fear of you and I. When them immigration comes crack down, concentration camps all around. Now more reason to keep increasing, policing, decreasing the freedoms of black and brown. On every town in every desert, ghetto and mountain range. Times are strange, glorification of impatient ways. Who really to blame? Colonization and crusades. Insane cowboys causing pain. Human beings bring change. We are resistance. We are resistance. to get rid of my kind ever since the beginning of time. Cause I'm directly descended from those who defended our lives and bloodlines. I'm what made the plantations burn and made people like Tubman return. Even after her death, her spirit inspires fire, such a lesson to be learned. I feel the maroon and machetero, and I bring quilombos. Remember the Congo? I'm the feeling of being free in your memory. I'm the sound of the bongo. I'm bomba and I'm plena and I'm palo. I'm the rhythm that you follow.
La cultura pura literally translates to culture is healing. It's part of our theory of change and framework.
Been reaching the thugs, and the government try to deny me by keeping you high off them drugs. But I'm fortified in my foundation. Creation made me stable and patient. I'll be waiting there to greet you whenever you come off vacation, saying Sela, Sela, I remember who you are.
We're the first city that I'm aware of in the state, or possibly even the nation, that's been able to defeat a gang injunction.
I get eternal truth and my stories written in the stars. We are resistance. We are resistance.
What we know is that power is never ceded, it has to be seized. Our organization works with systems impacted young people and so that's youth and young adults and their family members to elevate their voice and power to be the agents of change as folks who've been directly impacted.
All right. Shout out to Courage, Communities United for Restorative Justice. If you are a system impact youth, or you got a youth in your life who's system impacted and they're looking for a positive program that is involved with grown-ups who've been through what the young people have been through, or looking for other young people who've been through what you've been through, and you want to fight this very degrading and brutal system of criminal injustice that they're doing on the youth, and replaced it with something better that'll actually restore our youth and transform them, then that's an organization you want to get down with. Like what they had mentioned, one of the things that the founder George Galvez had said is that Courage is one of the only organizations that has ever been able to fight a gang injunction. If folks don't remember, in the early 2000s they had put gang injunctions in North Oakland, and then again in the Fruitvale. The one in North Oakland completely decimated North Oakland. And what a gang injunction did, or how they wrote it, was basically it was a profiling law, which it just profiled people. You didn't have to be part of a gang; they just profiled you. 3 or more people dressed the same. We in Oakland. The standard uniform for men is iron jeans and an iron T-shirt. And they were using that to claim that was what people were in gangs. And the reality at the time when they put in the gang injunctions in both North Oakland and Fruitvale, Oakland didn't have gangs like that. Oakland had, sets, people from different turfs or different crews, and some of the turfs did illegal activities and some of the turfs didn't. It was just how Oakland was organized. In fact, Oakland was one of the only cities in the country where it actually chased away gangs that try to come in and set themselves up here. And so for them to put gang injunctions in a city that the people rejected the gangs was like outlandish, and it devastated North Oakland. It gutted out the community. What the gang injunction really is, it's a restraining order. If they profile you as a gang member, they put you in a gang book, and you're in that book for life. That follows you for the rest of your life, whether or not you in a gang. And that was what was happening, and it put restraining orders, and if anyone in your family let you back into the neighborhood, then they would get charged with misdemeanors and felonies. And so it was a really brutal and vicious way to empty out a neighborhood so that the newcomers could come in and they could jack up the rents. And they succeeded in doing that in North Oakland, in the North Pole. And they tried it in Fruitvale, but the folks in Fruitvale saw what happened in North Oakland, and they were ready to mobilize and get it together, and they actually removed the Fruitvale gang injunction off the books, and that was a huge success. And we see that because the Fruitvale didn't get erased the way North Oakland did. So shout out to Courage, and let's jump right into it.
What's up with it?
What's up, Sean?
What's going on, Nita B?
You know.
Hey.
Yes.
This my girl Nita B, like she said, we go back at least a couple of decades.
Yep.
You know, I actually had a teeth infection, had an extraction yesterday, and had a couple of teeth pulled out. So just bear with me. But I wanted to, slide through, come through anyway, because I missed a couple of previous invites. To talk about some of this homeless crisis that's going on in Alameda County
Yeah.
and Oakland in particular, and how it really affects and impact a lot of the native folks, right, who is actually native of California as a state, native of Alameda County as a county region, and native to Oakland as a city. Why is it so difficult for folk to be able to navigate and get the real help that they need in a timely manner, right? So 1, 2, 3 years, okay, that's one thing. But some folks been unhoused or homeless for decades, right? When you start talking to folks or whatever, and then some of the people you talk to, you ask them, have they ever applied for any supportive services? Some might have never applied for no supportive services. Some probably has applied for many supportive services, right? Now the difference is that what type of help do you get when you do apply versus when you don't apply, right? Because some people will tell you they'll try to figure things out the best way they know how by going for whatever it is what they know, right? Whether it's living in a car, couch surfing, and then I want to speak real briefly on terms and terminology, right? When we're talking about homelessness and people who are unsheltered or unhoused, right? So the word homeless, it has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. Unhoused, most people would say that's just a person that don't have a dwelling place with four walls, right? Unsheltered, that may be a mixed bag depending on who you ask what shelter is and what shelter's not. Because most folk, and depending on the age range too, right? Because this is multi-generational. I just turned 51 a couple of days ago, right? So I'm kind of a little old school, kind of like, scratch paper, figure stuff out, critical thinking skills, life skills, home economics, cooking, cleaning, washing dishes. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying? With not all this Facebook, not all this Instagram and app. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So, so I'm trying to speak, for my generation, the elder generation, and even the younger generation, so we can have some real interpretations, right, of what is and what's not, right, when it comes to, what you see on the news, on the local news station, versus the reality that you see in real life as you go interact throughout the city, right? Because if you living in California, especially for the last 5 to 10 years, if you don't know at least 3 to 10 people who are experiencing some type of housing instabilities, I don't know, unless you just really, all your friends and folks are really well off, right? But I would say the cost of living here in the Bay Area is a major contributing factor. The cost, first and foremost. This is a crisis, it's a calamity, and it's also a business, right?
Right.
So, because there's many people who profit from, the unfortunateness of certain people's vulnerabilities, right? Whether that's a drug addiction, whether it's, a mental illness, whether it's a learning disability, a physical disability, the lack of, not continuing at education, economic disparities, healthcare disparities, even when folks try to do the best, when you only have so much to do the best with, and you still coming up short, right? Who values that? Who look at that and says, well, okay, you only have this much, so reality, you can only do so much with what you have. So that's one of the big things that I personally, and I think we're going to have to do a double take on this podcast about this homelessness, because it's a really, complex,
Right.
it's not as complicated. It's not as complicated nor as complex as people try to make it out to be, because there's, first and foremost, and I'll just throw this out there because I like to do a little research, and in addition to my own lived personal experience of being unhoused, being unsheltered, having a space on the lake, having my place destroyed by the city of Oakland, Operation Dignity, being put in a hotel temporarily for like 3 months, and then the day before Thanksgiving, I'm told that they don't no longer have funds and they cannot replenish my stay, right? So these are things that are different from a person who's working in the housing sector. Well, we help people, find housing and such. So I think there should be committees, and I think I may be getting ready to join one that that respects the voice or voices of people who have lived experience as a consumer. And that's what my thing is now, is not just being a homeless advocate just because I experience homelessness, but I want to be a consumer service um, consumer service um, advisor, right? So to help folks to look at, if you are signed up for a certain service or a certain program, you should know where you at in the queue, where you at in the processes of being housed. Now, are you, and what type of options do you have available? Is it only a tough shed that they want to say is a tiny home, right? Those, you understand me? Home Depot tough sheds that you put tools in, that they put people in, and instead of one person, they want to have two people in them that may or may not even know each other at all, and they may have different type of, mental diagnoses, etc. So the city of Oakland has wasted tons of money.
Millions.
I think the state of California went through like 24 billion in the past 5 years, and the county of Alameda has went through somewhere around 30, 40 million, right? But did the homeless population decrease or increase, right? So these is the things, because a lot of times folk, they look at the news, the local news, and it always say, well, oh, these people, they don't want anything. We tried to offer them, Now, if you've never talked to anybody who have lived in shelters or some of these places, they'll tell you that they may have experienced more abuse in the shelter than they did while being outdoors.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So those are some real things that, even me now, I'm no longer homeless. I'm in an apartment now, but I'm focused more now, not so much on the housing part as much as I am on the medical side. That's also a very, confusing piece and component that's supposed to be working cooperatively, right? But it's not, right? I almost didn't even get a lift ride here to this important meeting because of the folk. They was a little younger, right? But they're case managers in a supportive housing, right, where I live, right? And I'm like, I need a lift ride. So this is why I said it may have to be a continued conversation, because this is multi-generational now. When I grew up in Oakland, first and foremost, I am an Oakland native, born and raised, East Oakland, East Side, elementary, junior high school, Castlemont, Laney, Merritt College, you know what I'm saying? So I'm from Oakland. So when some of these nonprofits and such say, oh, we got resources, we'll connect you to resources. Tell me what, when, and where. Is it Elmhurst Library? Is it the, you know what I'm saying? Is it the Grand Lake Theater? Tell me specifically. But a lot of part of what I've realized too, with the amount of money that has went into these homeless programs and services, is that many people come from other regions, other states, other counties, other districts to come to help save Oakland people, right? And they come with a false cape. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't know the people, they don't know the language of the people, and so when folks are trying to get certain help, even if they know all of the acronyms and synonyms like wraparound services, 211, coordinated entry, all of that kind of stuff, because I've been a part of those systems and programs, and that's why I say this may have to be a two-piece series, so certain folks whom have heard of certain things like 211, the CES, the coordinated entry system, HMIS Clarity, these kind of things is when you are unhoused. I think it started like in 2017, somewhere in there, for people in Alameda County specifically who were experiencing chronic homelessness, right? So now I'm gonna say this in as a housing term and as a medical term, right? So as a housing term, this is folks who was experiencing homelessness from like 2 to 3 years, right? That qualifies you. And I have some of the paperwork and some of the terms because I had to fill out some of the paperwork, and so I know, what the terms are and what the paperwork looks like, okay? Right? And so, and each agency this is how they're funded too. So
the numbers game.
Know that this is how they're funded, and so if you fall in these categories and you with 1, 2, 3 or more agencies and they all have failed you, that's a major problem.
Right.
Because you should not continue to be chronically homeless without some type of remedy. I'm just saying the two pieces I wanted to very distinctly on this podcast to say that as far as chronic homelessness is a term, know that 1 to 3 years, that's a term. That's a medical now, because just being unhoused and unsheltered, you probably may do drugs, you may do alcohol, you may sleep in cars, you may sleep in abandoned, you may experience other things that also impacts your health and your well-beingness, right? So whoever you're connected to as far as your HRC, your Housing Resource Center, whether it's HACS, BACS, Roots, Lifelong, it doesn't matter, because they all, that's what they're there for, is to help you with the navigation pieces and parts of transitioning from a chronic homeless state to a permanent housing, right? Which is an apartment. But the thing why I'm saying it's part two, because it's another folks that I just connected with on First Fridays I want to work with, probably be about policy that could help me help others to really know how to get their records that they need so they could have a printout and a copy. So anytime you sign your name, your signature, your social security number, and all of that kind of stuff, if you are not privy, because most of these agencies and programs, they basically refer you to another agency or another program. But with that being said, legally, especially when it's dealing with medical stuff and any other critical type of information, everybody's not supposed to have access to that, because that is a violation of ADA and HIPAA laws. HIPAA is more about your medical protection, right? So if they sharing information over the websites and all this stuff and it's not encrypted, and she's talking about, girl, she got this and she got that or whatever, that's a violation. There's supposed to be privacy when it comes to dealing with, you may have cancer, you may have a terminal illness, right? And even people knowing that you got cancer or lupus or, diabetes or, anything that could be, a life-threatening condition, you don't need just everybody in your business and gossiping about your business. Those who know need to know that you may have a very short time to live. So the best thing for you is to really make sure that you connected to, clinical services that's going to allow you to have a chance to live your best life for the amount of time you have left to live, or even possibly be able to change a chronic condition that would otherwise shorten your life existency if there is no type of, supportive services where folks is like not judging you based on how you look, how you talk, how you whatever. Because everybody's getting paid.
Right.
So everybody that's getting paid to do work should be working. All this teleworking and Zoom calling and Zoom meetings, Zoom to the Zoom. Get off them damn Zooms and go and do wellness checks.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm in my building and it's been and the building is only like 5 years old. If you look at the building, it looks, but how many people have died? Right? And people who have previously experienced homelessness. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to shoot it back to Nita. But, she just wanted me to come on here because, I've lived this. I've experienced this. I've dealt with the city of Oakland. I've dealt with, building out there on the lake. I've dealt with, the police and the public workers. And this is what you call like a divided Oakland, right? Because I'm from Oakland, right? But I had to deal with the city of Oakland, who did not help me with, reasonable accommodations. And that's another word, another term that I'm, really trying to introduce into folks so they can really know, like, not to argue, not to debate with nobody, what's a reasonable accommodation. For me, it might be one thing. For Nita, it might be for something else. For the brother, it might be something else. For somebody, they might need some glasses because they got a visual problem. Somebody else may need a hearing aid because they have hearing loss. Somebody else may need a cane or a wheelchair, a walker. Somebody else may need a tutor paid for a year as an accommodation, as a reasonable accommodation. I'm also dyslexic myself. So I struggled. I flunked the first grade, right? So reading, writing had always been a challenge for me personally. Right, so now that I'm 50, 51 to be exact, right? I love the fact that I can read, my comprehension is really high, but I ain't tech savvy. I don't know how to work all these little devices and all of that stuff. But I could say, where's the money going when it goes to, these supportive services? And why we're continuing to see, an increase of homelessness. When I grew up here in Oakland, California, you didn't see no teenagers homeless. You barely saw a few adults homeless, right? Because you either went, if things weren't going well at your mom and dad house, you went to grandma's, you went to an aunt or uncle, or maybe to, one of your school friends, your godmother, godfather, somebody took you in. They didn't. But now, generation to generation, we have a massive amount of seniors. Seniors, we talking about 60 plus, right? Then we have, Gen X. I guess that's my generation, and then you have the other generations under, right? Who are experiencing chronic homelessness as both a housing term and as a medical term, right? And I wanted to, be very clear about those two different terms as they're relating to funding and actual services. So when you do have someone who's really about that service business and they work with you with like a wraparound service, wellness recovery action plan, right? I've talked to certain folks who supervisor program managers in certain capacities, and they did not even know what I was asking for. Like I'm asking for a brick when I'm asking for some water. And so
Wow.
if you need some water and somebody giving you a brick, there's a real serious communication error, right? And if they're getting funded for giving you a brick when they're supposed to be giving you some water, that's even a bigger problem.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just flowing because this is a real,
please do, yeah.
you know,
You
thing
got a
with me.
wealth of knowledge, from your lived experience, and then I appreciate it because you understand the nuances and of how to navigate through the system and all the different barriers that there are, and then you also understand the loopholes. The loopholes to me are important. The loopholes are what get you through the system. And you brought up so much stuff, that there was so much in what you just said. Like a couple of things that come to mind is when I first started hearing the word chronic homelessness, that was like in 2015, 2016, and the definition was if you've been unhoused for 8 years or more. So what you just taught me today is that they dropped that number, which is really interesting. And I wonder, do they drop the number because there's so many people out there now? Because if someone's been out there for a year, I don't think that's chronic. It's just like you've been unhoused for a year. To me, someone who's been there chronic means like a long time. And so I think it's a disservice to the people who've been out there for a long time to now, so if I've been out there for a year, I don't have the same experience for somebody who's been out there for 20 years. And now we're like, because we're now being put together in the same bundle of people, that means we're fighting for the same resources, and those resources should be separate, because what somebody who's been out there for a year is going through is a totally different mental, emotional, physical health than somebody who's been out there for a decade. So that was very interesting to me, and I wonder when that switch happened. And this idea of coordinated entry, and that like you said, it started in 2017. It was a great idea that the county was like, okay, all these nonprofits, the city and the county and the different county departments need to be working together in coordination to make sure that for each person in that system, they are working together as a unit to get them from point A, which is homelessness, to point Z, which is permanent housing and independence. And that does not what's happening. It's like there is no coordination. There's like very little communication between the city and county. A lot of the nonprofits don't talk to each other, and what they like to do is point fingers at each other.
Yes.
If oh no, that's Bax's issue, and then you got to go talk to Bax, and then you go to talk to Bax. No, that's Root's issue, and you go to Root's. No, that's this person's issue, and then you just go around in a circle like a hamster, and all they do is keep on pointing to each other, and nothing gets done.
Right.
And like, you're already unhoused.
Yes.
And in the moment we're in right now, where the city is being ruthless to unhouse people and really just pushing people deeper into trauma and deeper into homelessness with its practices. So now you have this whole other layer of trying to survive day by day, and then dealing with the kind of, harassment or oppression that you're getting from the city or the nonprofits. And then you're trying to navigate, and they're just sending you around in a circle. That like tears at someone's mental health and emotional health. It's just tearing people apart. I don't see a lot of help happening. And that's not to say that there aren't good people in these organizations. There are gems in there. They're few and far between.
Right.
And a lot of times they don't last.
Right.
Because they can't deal with the system that they're in, and they see that there's very little they can really do to help people, because when they do try to help people, they're blocked. They're not allowed to help people. And so that just makes me believe that this whole system, this homeless industry, they call it the homeless industrial complex, is just set up there to make sure that people, there's a group of people who are making a lot of money. It doesn't make no sense to me that anybody who is a manager, who's an administrator, who's a coordinator is making 6 figures to help the homeless. Like, why? Why?
Wow.
That don't make no sense. That morally is not justified. How the hell are you making that much money off of somebody in homelessness and you're not even able to get them out of it? You're actually doing things to make things worse for them. And then we have the level of like, so there's that and then I think part of it comes to like a lot of people, they get these jobs. There's a certain kind of person that wants to get, a majority of the people who want these jobs have a particular personality. They're folks who are power hungry. They're people who like to have control over others. They're bullies. The folks who actually are in the nonprofit, a majority, not everybody, but a vast majority of the people who work for the homeless industrial complex lack a very important qualification, in my opinion, to be doing this work, and that's kindness. They do not have kindness. They don't care. They don't know how to be gentle with people who are in trauma. And a lot of these folks have been through their own trauma, and they have not received they have not received the healing or the kindness themselves to know how to treat people right. And it's like, it's very important to hire people with lived experience, like you, like me, right? Like other people, you know what I'm saying? But we have done the work to make sure that we're not going to replicate the harm that's been done to us. And they're hiring people because people are like, I have lived experience. Here's a job. But they're not asking people like, well, what have you done to make sure that you're not going to replicate the trauma that you've been in? What are you doing when you're in a situation? Because these jobs are very triggering. So they're not asking people or offering people the kind of support they need for like when you're in this job and you get triggered, what are you going to do? And what can we do as your employer to make sure that we're taking care of you when you are triggered? There's none of that. It's just the whole system is very broken, and it's also designed by people who've never experienced homelessness. So they're hiring people who've experienced homelessness. They don't know what to look for in qualifications beyond you're homeless, you're hired. And they've never experienced it themselves, so they are making decisions and creating programs based on what they see from the inside out. Unhoused people have the answers. All of us have our own. There are like the homeless is not like a monolithic group. What each of us need is individual to us. And people who have not lived this don't understand that. And so they're looking from the inside out. And like you said, a lot of them are coming from out of state, out of region to be like, this is a career move for me.
Marin County.
And I'm going to be here to save the homeless of Oakland, not knowing what the hell they're even talking about.
And so I want to chime in on it. So like the 211, the coordinated entry piece, the HRCs. HRC is Housing Resource Centers, right? You know, and so if you haven't filed a grievance 1, 2, or 3 yet, you might need to, right? And so, the communication between agency to agency and program to program. First and foremost, a lot of them, their funding, comes usually from the same sources, right? So they may act like they're associates or sister agency or program, but they're really associates and affiliates than they are actual partners, right? And but some of them use the same system, the coordinated entry, all of that, right? But the turnovers, right? Because usually the case managers, they got too many people on their caseload, right? So when you're dealing with people who have, these type of real life issues and challenges, which is multifold, economical, medical, social services, all of those things, you may need to work with an individual or a family for, a whole week to really even get to real gist of what's going on. But if you got 150 people on your caseload, right? It is not humanly possible to give each one of these people your undivided attention, where you actively listening to what their issues and their challenges and their concerns are, right? And so if you operating off a cookie cutter model, one size does not fit all, right? So one thing about me knowing about people with disabilities, myself included, right? You have visible disabilities, you have non-visible disabilities,
Yes.
and the such. But within that realm, usually if you have a good vocational rehabilitational type of counselor that's either working with you with education, housing, employment, whatever, they help to put together an IEP, right? Which is an individualized educational plan or individualized employment plan, right? So another thing with people who are experiencing chronic homelessness and unhoused or unshelteredness, when it comes to their benefits, right? A lot of people need the right type of folk to be able to accurately explain to them, you know, how they can maintain their benefits and work part time or go to school part time, right? So some folks may not want to go to school or may not want to work because they in fear of the few little benefits that they do have might get cut off,
Right.
right? And so that's a realistic fear that some people have, but you know, I know for a fact because I love to read, I love to do my research and my own due diligence, and this is why I should be hired by folks who could actually pay me to look over certain paperwork. You know what I mean? To see if all the I's been dotted, all the T's been crossed.
Right.
Which boxes been checked, which boxes haven't been checked.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's where the loopholes may be at, where you've been categorized in a particular category, right? But whoever's your care provider or your housing navigator, right? They're constantly getting paid. You might be getting played and not even know it.
Right.
Not even know it. So this is not just something about, we need more. No, they building all kind of housing right now. And right now, like I said, the building I'm in is only like 5 years old. So prefab, and one day I want to kind of do my own prefab, etc. Right? I mean, I did the little pallet thing on the lake or whatever, but I want to come back with some real tiny homes and the real stuff, but not a whole lot of, super construction with a whole bunch of wood and pallets like I did before. This time, do the frame, do the structure, do the drawing, do the design, you get the materials, and folks that respect having somewhere decent to live and want to keep their place together. That shows a lot of self dignity, self care, self preservation. Because even with the homeless population, but everybody's mixed in a mix. It's a mixed bag. So sometimes you can't tell the difference between who want to work and go to school versus somebody that they got hope to some bad dope or whatever, and they need to really be in a rehab program for a whole year or maybe two, right? So they can really get back because they gone. They walking around here mind gone, right? And so we look at these different realities, and depending on the perspective that you looking from, the lens that you looking from, you might be like, well, damn, she just been doing dope for 20, 30 years, and so now it just didn't caught up with her, right? But even with the drug scene, it's so many new different drugs out here, like the kids, you could be smoking weed and get some fentanyl.
Right.
And, it could be your first time, and then all of a sudden you out of here. So it's a difference, like what Nita was talking about, somebody, having a year or maybe 2 years of unhoused or unhomelessness versus somebody with 10, 20, or 30 years, right? So if a person got 10 or more years, they most definitely have some a little bit of street wisdom, a little bit of street knowledge, or know how to maneuver in the streets somewhat somehow. Now somebody that's got a year, 6 months, I mean, and I'm not to say who deserved to be housed first or not, but with a lot of these agencies and a lot of these programs, back to the 211, back to the coordinated entry system. Yes, when they started off with the boardroom and all of the talk and that, it was probably a great idea. Yeah, coordinated entry, how the people call 211.
But they didn't do it right.
They didn't do it right, and because it's I think when I did my research, out of the $24 billion that California went through, I think they said it was like three nonprofits out of all of the nonprofits that got funding. Actually, because none of them had any type of matrix of showing the success of their programs, right? So it's really no tracking.
That's across the board.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
across the board, you can go from LA, from Southern California
Yeah.
to Northern California, whatever, right? You're going to still see it was just 24 billion, right? Plus. So it's a whole new set of funding now, right? And and so back to the turnovers, right? So people will go from one agency to the other agency or one program to the other program. You learned a little bit over here, then you take what you learned from over here, and then the nepotism is real. Nepotism is when people hooking up friends and family, right? And see, this is something that don't really necessarily has a color to it. This just has something to do with people feeling like, hey,
I can hook you up.
I could hook you up. I could hook you up, and so that goes on like so much that it's devastating because some people are really trying to, turn that corner and really trying to get on a better page in life, and they really need that extra help and support, whether it's the gift cards, whether it's the bus tickets, whether it's the Clipper cards, whether it's the paratransit, whatever it is. And back to the word again, the term, wraparound services. So when I'm having a consultation with somebody and I'm asking them like, okay, where are you at? Which agency? Was it BACS? Was it Roots? Was it Lifelong? Which agency or program that you're connected with, and who's your point of contact? You should know that. Who's your point of contact? So, because I was with the coordinator all the whole time while I was out there homeless on the lake, people didn't realize that I was a part of the coordinated entry. I was waiting on my housing. I was waiting on my disability income and all of this stuff. So I was not just a person that was not connected to no services or no programs, and that I just wanted to be outside at the lake,
It wasn't working for you.
The
programs and services wasn't working for you.
It wasn't working, and then at the same time, the city of Oakland contracted with people like Operation Dignity and such, who would come out and say, hey, we do homeless outreach, et cetera, et cetera. But again, the first thing they should ask me, are you connected to any services or any programs in Alameda County? That would have been a great question. I wouldn't have the experience, the trauma of them removing me illegally, right, twice, the fires, the arson. I went through a lot of stuff that some people know, some people don't know. Many people just, they saw my truck on fire, while I was in his sleep. And I filed for victims of crime like 3 years ago. Do you know I'm still waiting? Still waiting. And that's another program, Victims of Crime. It takes 90 days, which is 3 months, for them to approve your claim. Then you find out it's a reimbursement program. So I was homeless at the time and all of the stuff, but, my truck was set on fire while I was in it sleeping. Woke up, and And so, I was approved for $2,000 for relocation, $1,000 for video equipment and surveillance cameras and all this stuff, and for 40 hours a session for therapy, for trauma. 3 years later, I'm still, still haven't received the reimbursement. because I ended up, you know, even after, so I said after the city um, destroyed my place at the lake and put me in a hotel for a couple of months. Once they stopped paying, I went to the extended stay, which they getting ready to put a lot of unhoused people in now, which is I don't think is a good hotel. Um, but I was paying them cash money because I didn't want to be back outside because at that time we was having a weather storm, a big catastrophic rain. You know, when we had the big catastrophic rain that we had never had before. So I didn't want to be back outside because I had been outside before, experiencing rain, floods, fires, arson, gunshot, bullet in my stomach, a lot of different stuff. So people, even they see me now, they be like, oh, his brother was on the lake or whatever. And I'm just cool, smooth, happy guy. But I went through a lot of traumatic stuff while being out there. So I don't take representing the things that I represent lightly. And if person's not willing to like step up and ask for a printout of where they at with where they at, people could be giving you smoke and mirrors all the time, talking about, okay, we got you, 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 we gonna help you.
And they never turn in the paperwork.
And they never turn in the paperwork. They don't turn the paperwork in, or they got it set up where the money's coming to you, or the vouchers coming to them, or the gift cards going to them, or you know what I'm saying. So it's a whole lot of fadangling. It's a whole lot of fadangling going on with this homeless, industrial, fadanglements. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It's a lot of corruption, and so average folk, they're just looking at the news. Even my friends and families, they don't really know, some of the stuff that I personally went through and experienced with, the city and, but also the love. So I could talk about the bad and the negative. It was about a lot of bad and a lot of negative stuff. But then there was, some love, while I was out there on that lake, and experiencing homelessness, that I met people of all races, white, black, Mexican, Chinese. It's just a real diverse, folk who, just saw they saw the vulnerability, but they also saw the strength of, because, hey, I might be your brother, I might be your cousin, I might be your uncle, might be your dad, you know what I'm saying? And, you may or not be able to talk to them or whatever, for whatever reasons, but, when you see, because it's like Oakland, like everybody's famous. It might be the person at the liquor store and he always out there, you know what I'm saying? It might be the lady, she cracked out, but she got her little dance or whatever going on. That's a part of Oakland, you know what I mean? Where people just authentically, truly, expressively, whether good times, bad times, whatever. And so back to saying like the language disconnect when it comes to even some of the therapists and the such. I'm still without trauma counseling, right? I'm still in need of trauma counseling because of all of the different traumatic stuff that I've been through and experienced. But the resiliency, you know what I'm saying, in me allows me to continue, whether I have the supportive services that has been allocated to the state of California, to the county of Alameda, and specifically to the city of Oakland, right? Because see, each and every agency and program that I've been with, they should have an account. They should have a record of what they actually provided.
Right.
So when I enrolled, when I exited the program, you know what I'm saying? Did they stop services? Why they stopped services? And these are some of the basic things that I would like to.
Continuum of care would do, right? Continuum.
Yes.
Of care.
But again,
but there's no continuation. You go from one place to another. They got no record, no tracking of, like you said, how they helped you. If the help was beneficial, was it successful, was it efficient? Yeah, it's so deep.
So I want to say this because of that hotel that they getting ready to do over there, extended stay in Emeryville. I hate them with a passion. Oh, I won't say hate. I would say seriously, just like the previous staff. I heard they got a little bit of new staff now. right? But I paid those folks over there, and they did me, a real dirty. You understand me? Because there were people there who was unhoused and sheltered previously. And I guess they got the grant from the city or whatever, because it was around COVID time or whatever. And so a lot of those people, hadn't paid rent for like 2 or 3 years, but they were still there. And I was there for a few months, and I was paying rent, right?
Out of your own pocket.
Out of my own pocket, right? And one of the managers went in my room. They took my stuff out. They put it in the boiler room, all of the stuff, and just made it really, more trying. They called the police like about 5 times, and each time the police came, I would show them my paperwork, right, to say, here's my receipts. And so I think that's one of the major things that is different from the generations when it comes into knowing that there's human error and sometimes even systematic errors that it's possible that could happen. But it don't matter if you're at social service, social security, Department of Rehab, it doesn't matter. If you're a consumer, if you're a client, somebody should be able to give you a printout with the date and the time, whether this is your income verification, whether it's a medical. When you go to the hospital, they give you a discharge paper, right? They say what you was there for, right? And then there should be some other additional notes to, for you to continue your care, to follow up with your primary care provider, right? And so I'll say this too on this piece, that even if you in transition with your housing status and you got some serious medical stuff going on, it's always okay to speak with a clinical social worker at a hospital, right? Because they may have a little bit more plug, or their pen may be a little more powerful than just your case manager and the such. If they don't really have, if they can't write up a recommendation, because if you're chronically homeless, or health wise, right? So for you to get off the streets, for you to get into some, whether it's temporary shelter, temporary lodging, health wise, your clinical social worker could be more instrumental with help making the recommendation become a reality, right? Because you can know all of the words, you can know all of the terms, you can know all of the buzzwords or whatever, but when it comes into the follow-ups and stuff like that, because some folks may have issues with keeping a phone or being able to check their emails, or these kind of different things, right? And that's a reality, right? But if you have folks that make it a point to come in and check in with you to see how you're doing health wise, and to give you more than just a bag lunch. A lot of these agencies and a lot of these programs,
Peanut butter and sandwich.
they get real serious funding, but they'll go get the day old bread, peanut butter and jellies, and so I'm glad that I've met some other folks that's cooking some real serious food, and I want to hopefully me and Nita be able to connect and collaborate on some of that stuff as well, to really help folk to have some some food with some love in it, right? To whereas even if you unhoused, unsheltered, or in between lease, in between jobs, in between in between real life situations, there's nothing better than having some food that's just like that got some love in it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you got some food that, I mean, it's like the old school little commercial when a little boy he take the malto meal. It's a whole blizzard going on outside. It's a blizzard, but he come back in and he say, "Could I have some more malto meal, please?" Right? So give people, what I'm saying, some love, right? Because love is powerful. Love is powerful, and a lot of people, they haven't really experienced love. They experienced a lot of trauma. A lot of, fussing and fighting in their family, in the households, a lot of dysfunctional families, growing up in Oakland and in the Bay Area, right? But let the true love and authentic love of the people that's, that still have, even if it ain't nothing but an ounce, you know what I'm saying? More bounce to the ounce. You know what I'm talking about? More bounce to the ounce. Let the ounce of love bounce, and let it ripple.
Right.
You understand me? Like you throw a rock in the water and it skip. So I'm glad, even with the toothache, you understand. Like I said, I just had 3 teeth abstract. I mean, just took out, right? So you know how many times they had to shoot me with a needle, like, you know what I'm saying? I had to turn the other way because I didn't want to see how big and long those needles were, right? But I needed to get those pieces and parts of teeth out of my mouth, right? And so, but like I said, I missed a couple of the podcasts with Nita shit, And so, but today I made it a point to try my best, to get here, right? But it was almost like, dang, here's another part, even after being housed, right? Like I said, some of the supportive services. After some of folks get housed and you know what I'm saying, and you think your people good, well, they in a house now, they ain't outside no more, they ain't woo. But some of the other services that they need to have certain type of activities, play some of that old school music, play some things where they can feel alive. Because some folk, they'll feel isolated, right, in their place. And then when you move a lot of people who have been unhoused and unsheltered, and they have a lot of, vices that, you know what I'm saying, so unless they in some type of program that helps them, not with judgment, right? Not with judgment, but realistic, like, hey, you've been using for whatever time, whether it was a short time or a long time, it's in your cells now.
Right.
Right? So clinically,
you may not be able to live without it.
You may not be able to live without it.
You need that drug to stay alive.
Yes. And the first time I heard that with somebody who was an alcoholic, right? A friend of mine, OG, when I was like 21 years, I had a store in Pittsburgh, and he was like, bro, listen, man, you see us out there drinking every day on that corner, me and the old guys. And he was like, I had a little store at the time. He said, man, always watch out for your little store and everything. He was like, but I need a drink. He's like, I just want to be straight up honest with you that I'm an alcoholic, and this is a disease, and it's probably going to kill me one day. But he said, but I just can't stop cold turkey because I'm going to have DDTs, right? I've never heard, what is a DDT or whatever, but I guess they go through a whole psychological, deal, withdrawals, and, it's a cycle, psychosis, right? So I could be like, man, you just, no. But I was like, okay, he way older than me, and he's basically humbling himself like, bro, this is not just an addiction. It's an addiction, but it's a disease.
It's a dependency now.
And now it's a dependency.
Dependent on it.
Right? So my body need it, right? And not just so I'm saying that to say some of these agencies, some of these programs, they'll put some younger folk in some positions that maybe they're not even qualified to talk to somebody that's 20 years their elder, right? And they may or may not have the educational qualifications
or the understanding.
Yeah. Now, if they mom or they daddy was an alcoholic or dope fiend or a pimp, prostitute, or whatever, they may be a little more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
But even in your relatability-ness, do you want that person to stay stuck in what you could relate to them with? Mm. Or do you want to help them, get out of it? Yeah. So that's all of the other stuff. Some people will never really understand, some of the depths because they come from a whole totally different culture, whole totally different reality. Yeah. You got a lot of folk, I was downtown homeless, which is different in the West and the North and the East and whatever, right? And you'll see even some of the trust fund kids, right? They might be partying, experiencing, doing drugs or whatever, but at the end of the day, they trust fund kids. If shit hit the fan, they can make a phone call and somebody gonna send them a plane ticket, somebody gonna send them a bus ticket, and they could go home, right? But most of the folk here, they didn't burn the bridges at mama house, daddy house. They can't go to grandma and them house no more, whatever, because they didn't burn the bridge, right? But even though they may have burned those bridges here or there, I just hope and pray that there's somebody somewhere who has enough wisdom and discernment to just help who they can when they can, right? It's I don't see, it's a political conversation. We're gonna end homelessness. You can't end this homelessness. How you gonna end something that there's a lot of people benefit off? You know what I'm saying? The denigration of folk. So that's an oxymoron. You know what I mean? And I'm not no oxymoron. What I'm saying, the basics, my personal, I'm gonna do a little transitional housing and whatever, maybe help 5 to 10 people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Maybe 50 people a year, right? I can't. It's too many people.
And that number game is what's real. Like you said, some people got like 50, 80, 100 caseworkers. You ain't gonna get anywhere with that. I know with the work we do in the village, I will feed everybody.
Yeah.
I will feed everybody.
Right. Yeah.
But if I don't see you wanting to help yourself, I can't invest that time to help you.
Yeah.
And then I'm not gonna help 40 people at once.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna help one person at a time,
Yes.
one household at a time.
Yes.
Get them from A to Z.
Yes.
And then when they're at Z, I'll take on the next person.
Right.
But having a caseload of 40 people, that's a setup for failure.
That's a setup for
That is a setup
failure.
you got to take each person one at a time, one step at a time, and really invest in that person. Because if not, then it's a mess. The system is messed up. The way it's so much work to navigate through this system that if you've got 40 people you're navigating for, 100 people you're navigating for, no one's going to get help.
Right.
At all. You got to have a very small caseload, and that's not how it's set up. That's why I remember when we were on welfare. All the welfare workers were totally stressed out.
Stressed the fuck out. They
had so many cases. They had like 30
Yes.
people they was dealing with at any one time. How do you do that?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, you got
Yes.
30 people like me?
Right.
Like, of course, I'd be burnt out too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm bothering you every day, every
Right.
minute. Like, what's going on? What am I going to, But let's take a
Yeah.
little break, and then I want to come back and talk about actually East 12th and what's happening at this extended stay. They're going to start the eviction of East 12th on Monday. And
wow.
there's a lot that needs to be said about what's about to happen, and they're supposed to be going to extended stay. There's just a whole, good God.
Wow.
So
wow, that's coming up.
That's coming up in a few
Wow.
days. But based on what you was just talking about that need of that kind of, sometimes we got to step outside of these systems to find the help we want and help we need. And so there's an organization that has been part of 510 Day for the past 3 years. It's called Black Men Speaks. And they provide that space for black men to get that trauma healing that the system is failing to provide. So I wanted to check out this little clip from them, take a little break, and then we'll come back and talk about East 12th. DJ Igor, can you play that Black Men Speaks clip starting at 5 minutes and 6 seconds? Yep. And what I really appreciate about them, and I feel like it's a model that I've seen work the best, is it's peer counseling. It's people don't necessarily have degrees as counselors or therapists or psychologists, but it's people who've been through the experience, whatever that may be. The experience that they're focusing on is the experience of black men, and it's just black men coming together and creating space to tell their stories. This clip will get more into it, but
yeah, I know
they'll be out
couple of
there at
folks.
510 Day. So for the brothers out there who are looking for a space where they feel safe and in camaraderie with other black men, check them out. They're going to be on Lakeshore over by the Afro Entertainment open mic stage.
Shout out to the brother Joe. Joe Anderson was one of the founders and
of it.
creators of that
Yep.
piece. And, I saw him he came out with the drum over there at the lake. It was like, man, So Black Men Speak was, also a part of POCC. POCC was Pool of Consumer Champions, right? Which was basically a peer support, right? Like you just said, not necessarily degree and academia, but this was peer, and I think there always needs to be peer peer-to-peer support, support initiatives that help folk who have lived experience with certain type of, whether it's incarceration, whether it's homelessness, whether it's dealing with the welfare system, whatever it is, and when there's, usually they used to have little stipends and whatever. A lot of people, they kind of went to separate ways after, but some of the, founders, that was the whole thing about POCC, Pool of Consumer Champions, right? Saying that they, everybody was a champ. It was a consumer, right? And that's another reason why I'm like, my expertise or the areas I want to do consulting or service providing in is consumer services, right? If you're a consumer, or a client, you basically, you're a customer, right? So, but are you having the best customer experience, right? When you go to a store and you feel that you were treated with good customer service, you may return, and say, hey, thank you, right? And I come from that time and that era, right, to where it's like, it don't matter. A person can be working at McDonald's, Burger King, or whatever, I mean, we can get in our own little funk and our own little stinky little moods from time to time or whatever, but it's good to be good. Back to what you said, kindness, right? So kindness is not
goes
something.
a long way.
Yeah, it goes a long ways. You know what I mean? And you just don't know. Like a lot of people, even when I was homeless out there on the lake, a lot of people came to me and just told me, bro, just seeing you out here, seeing your dog out here, bro, like people done brought their wives, people done brought their husbands. You know what I'm saying? Like they done went home and talked about me and all of that kind of stuff, right? And then there was other people like, man, why the guy out there homeless and why he taking up all that space and why? But at the same time, when you ask all of those why questions, when was the last time you looked at the budgets that's been spent in the state, the budget that's been spent in the counties, the budget that's been spent in the cities, right? Because there's a lot of finger pointing and why, right? And again, folk would be surprised at the amount of people making six figures who's working in the homeless industries. But yeah, I do know a little bit about the founder and the such, but I just wanted to say that about the POCC being a pool of consumer champions, right? So meaning when you are a consumer, when you are a customer, it's just almost like the pedestrian used to always had a right of way, but this is Oakland. You better still watch. You still better watch both ways when you walk across that street, cause hey, you know what I mean.
You drive across the street.
Yeah,
too.
you better keep your head on the swivel. You better look both ways, cause you know what I'm saying. We got a lot of other unlawful, lawless people that's they move the way that they move, right? But I really hope and wish and pray for a greater. Better, Oakland, for the young folk, for the older folk, for the people with, lived experience, for the elderly, for the people with, chronic, health conditions, with, disabilities, both visible and non-visibles, that, they really get the care and the support and the connection, the access. Sometimes, like I spoke with a lady yesterday before we go into the clip, that, she says, yes, a lot of people they know about more services than I do. But it's still the access. How do they access them? That's some of the when you have an option to choose between Kaiser and Highland, you know what I'm saying, for whatever reasons, right? But if you don't have no option, you just gotta go with, well, this is the program that because it's always based on contracts with who's already worked the contract out with who. So they're going to always 99% try to send you to who they have a contract with. But if you have a certain type of dietary issues related health-wise, you're allergic to peanut butter, you're allergic to peanuts, and somebody come give you peanut butter jelly sandwiches, It doesn't work
Right.
out. Now you got allergic reaction, and now your throat all swole up, and such and such, and you damn near about to die, but you don't know. But back again to some of the younger folk versus some of the older folk. So the peer support, I'm with it. I support it, but I also support people who are peer support to also continue to educate, like me, for example. What people didn't know, even while I was out there on the lake, even now that I'm housed and all this shit, at 50 years old, I'm still continuing my dope education academia wise because, again, I want to have a pen that has some power in it, right? I want to be able to be at the table having a conversation, you know, with to whom it may concern, and not just be like, okay, help us, help us, help us, help us. No, I'm saying, this lived experience is one thing, but the continuation of academia as well as physical therapy, trauma counseling, and such. These things are lifelong. These are not just, but there are some stuff that are short term. So, what's short term? Don't have your stuff. This is an excellent point I got to make. Is that your care provider sign you up with services and you don't know that these services are that they didn't send the referral out 5 months, 6 months down the line, you got to do the services again. And when you're on stuff like Medi-Cal and all of this kind of stuff, there's always an annual renew, right? So most stuff that you got to get renewed in a year or 2 years. So this is the difference between a younger person who may or may not have the training versus a person who's older that just know how the system works because they've been dealing with the system for a long time. That if you don't send that CA7 form in, you don't send that CA7 form in, you know what I'm saying? I mean, them food names gonna be temporarily off, right?
Yeah.
And then you ain't gonna get no social work over the weekend and all of those kind of things. So it's not no one size fit all. Everything needs to be on an individual case by case basis. So I want to see what you're talking about on this other little thing, but today we're cooking with grease.
All right. All right, well, let's watch this clip about Black Men Speaks, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what the heck is going on with East 12 and just all the mess that's behind that.
Brian, why is the organization significant for you? What do you find?
When you're 50, 55 years old and you're African American, if you don't have any friends or the friends you have kind of waned, you need to look at building new relationships. So I went online and I started thinking, how do you make friends when you're 55 years old? So I found out about Peers, which is a nonprofit organization. They had this Black Men Speak group growing with them. So I visited, they were working with a new program called the Social Inclusion Campaign. Black Men Speak was a part of that group. I walked in a meeting one day and I sat there and I thought, I can't remember being in a room of personal friends, all black, since I left Chicago when I was a kid. Wow, this feels really good. Okay, guess where I can start here and make some new friends. Literally, that's what I was looking for.
And I think, too, is that we negate the importance of culture and kinship in mental health for us as men of color. And I know that there are a lot of discussions about general mental health, but again, I'm making it specific to black men because we tend to have the highest rate of suicide, the highest rate of alcohol addiction, the highest rate of substance abuse, the highest rate of chronic illnesses that kill us way before our time. So this is a discussion about how to heal ourselves.
Yes.
And one of the things that men in this male macho patriarchal society fail to do is to connect and provide a platform for our stories. And I think Black Men Speaks that has that. Tell us a little bit about the mission statement. I was looking at that. And, what do you think are some of the important parts of the mission statement that excite you again in joining this organization?
Okay, the mission statement really it speaks to the fact that we as African American men are out to help and connect our community, our African American community, and especially the male, because we're sort of like a distinct, an extinct bird. We're out here, we're mostly locked up in prisons. We come out, we don't have any services, but what it leads to is addressing some of the issues that we probably overlooked in our history and in our community, because nobody wants to recognize mental health as being an issue. But when we find that we have substance abuse problems along with alcoholism, and it just really enhances the mental health component. So we decided that we came to an agreement on the mission statement and how we would work it, and we would go back to the community and try to help connect our people with the services that are out here and available to them today, other than going to prison to get services. So
I want to join the speakers view. What do I have to do?
So the first thing
criteria?
is read the mission statement online, blackmenspeak.net, and then ask yourself, is that something that I really want to be a part of before you even come? And if that's something you want to be a part of, then come and sit there and you get to just be quiet for 3 meetings and not say a word. Just watch. We don't know you. You don't know us. Let's find out what you're doing, what you're thinking. You're showing up out of whatever's going on in your life, and we want to be receptive. But if we don't know what's going on with you and you don't know what's going on with us, we need to kind of be together in silence and just watch.
You know, I programs like 12-step, you know, have their place. What do you find is different from a 12-step program as opposed to a Black Men Speaks program in which, you know, you tell your story and again you become more of a reflection of the things you're trying to change?
Well, let me speak to that because I don't have any 12-step experience. Joe knows much more about that, so I'll start on my end. As I came to meet new friends, I had to come in contact with my personal mental health issues. My mental health issues, I have bipolar disorder. So who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to be honest, open, genuine, and real with without feeling put down? Black Men Speak was that venue that I chose to work through my own personal mental health. That was the best decision I made. So I didn't have any experience with, you know, Narcotics Anonymous or 12-step programs. I just wanted to connect and engage and take personal responsibility for where I'm going. And once I did that, I decided I'm going to help the whole African American community. So now I have a plan.
So, you know, again, it seems like different men taking different steps to the same road. What did you find unique about the experience? And I think one of the things I want to be clear about is that most of us believe now that the behavioral health issue or the mental health issue comes before the substance abuse issue.
Right.
And that, if anything, the substance abuse issue is a smokescreen for the mental health issue that's going on.
Yes.
So we agree with that.
I would like to speak on it. I
Sure.
agree with that issue, and I found it to be very true because when we were speaking about the 12-step programs, okay, 12-step programs, I went through quite a few of them, you know, and I went back to back, and they helped for a certain period of time. But again, as we were speaking earlier before the show, Brian was talking about triggers. When you go to a 12-step program, there's mostly new recovering people who are coming in who are subject to go back out and relapse. It is a combination of people who are healing and people who are not quite healed. So what it did for me, and I can only say for me personally, for some of the programs, it kept me kind of in a stage of limbo and undecided as to whether I wanted to go forward with my recovery or be out here where these people who had relapsed came back and told about the fun things that they were doing. So it became conflicting to me. It made it easier for me to get with Black Men Speak because we speak only of positives. We do not go back on war stories. We tell them in a little bit about how we got to where we are, but in essence, everything is going forward. We're talking about recovery, what we're doing tomorrow to recover, what we're doing today, right now, as we speak, to stay recovered.
Right, you're the Minister of Information, that's correct?
Joe made a joke about 2 months ago, and he said, man, this man give me so many emails. It's going on all night. I can't handle this. It's too much. And we were having a normal show, and one day he said, let me just introduce you to the Minister of Information, the Social Media Minister of Information. And I went, oh my God, that's true.
And he
I've
liked
been
that.
journaling for 30 years, and now it's just moved to online. And I realized, oh yeah, even though he's outside of me, that is me.
Yeah.
There's so much information in my head, I can't get it all out, so I just write.
So, example, a meeting consists of, and you guys, I understand from talking to both of you that you take the show on the road. So, you do presentations all over the barrier, and where you come and speak and give, I guess, a minute per discussion.
So here's the format.
Okay.
So we get together the first and the third Tuesday of every month. There's practicing your individual speech, time set aside for that. There's business, where we're speaking, who's ready, who's prepared, who's going to go. There is refining of some speeches. Depending on the venue we go to, They may not need my story. They may need Joe's story, or they may need your story. So the audience kind of helps us determine who should go and tell their life story.
All right. What's been the most memorable speaking piece that you guys have done together?
I'll tell you the most memorable, and it was really funny. I mentioned Options of Berkeley earlier, you know, and I hate that. Maybe I'm advertising, but I would like to advertise for these people. They're very good. And it's right across the street here. I had been begging the directors to let us come back and speak because we're alumnus. We have 4 people in our group, actually 5, in this group that were actually graduates of Options. It's a year-long program with another year of aftercare.
Okay.
And it was very memorable because we spoke to all these new guys who were coming in from phase 1, phase 2 to phase 3, and they go in 3-month increments, and then they move on. And so we got a chance to talk to these gentlemen about how we felt, what happened to us, and we shared the same experiences that they were going through. But now we've moved on 4 years clean, 4.5, actually I got 4.5 years clean. So I got a chance to come back and let them see, and my other gentlemen are pretty much the same. I got one that's 9 years clean from Options. It gave a chance for them to see a living example of what recovery is, what Options does, and how you can move on and give you another connection on the outside. So we did what the creed is. It's like we can't keep it if we don't give it away. So that means that our recovery will not stick with us if we don't give it back to someone who may need it or try to pull someone else in.
Okay, all
That
right.
was the most
All right.
memorable.
Website?
We can wrap it up.
www.blackmenspeak.net.
Great website. You should review it. Take a look at it.
Yeah, go. They'll be out there at 510 Day. Go check out their table on Lakeshore near the Cleveland Cascade Stairs. Plug in if you're looking for a space. Or just want to learn more about them, or if you want to book them to come to your school or your group, or you know, your organization, and have them speak to your members or whatnot. And so yeah, I want to talk about East 12.
Yeah. Hey,
East
before you just, I want to say to that clip right there, you know what I'm saying, to see, you know, Joe Anderson and to see, you know, the brothers on there, you know, speaking, and, you know, again, generation to generation, right? So, because we, you know, before all of the podcasting and the video and you know, past, present, and future, it's important to know, you know, some of the blood, sweat, and tears. So I just want to just give an honor, you know what I'm saying, to the brother, you know, Joe Anderson, right?
Absolutely.
Because, you know, even though I didn't really get a chance to fully, you know, speak on any, you know, at any of the events, it was like, but we talked in person, right? So it's always a different thing when you get a chance to speak with somebody in person and you know, share your insight and your perspectives, and they share their insights and their perspectives, and the possibility of, you know, sharing new insights and new perspectives to, you know, not be with the cookie cutter deal, right? So even though he represented Black Men Speak, but he also spoke on a different agency and program, which is Options, right? And so I want to, you know, extend on that, right? So, you know, any program or model that, you know, takes into consideration that, you know, a person may need, you know, a certain length of time, right, to really, you know, get back on track or get on, you know, a better page. Everything is not always no quick fix, you know, and so, you know, I just wanted to, you know, not run past that, because that was, you know, some wisdom from an elder who is, you know, passed on. So Joe, I spoke of you and spoke on you today, you know, in real life, and that was a beautiful podcast and demonstration with you and the 3 brothers speaking, and to give, you know, real critical and pertinent insights and perspectives, specifically around Black men in general. And I hope that we all are able to continue to move forward with wisdom, grace, and knowledge and truth. And so I just wanted to say that before we go ahead and get to the next topic, because some folk been doing work a lot longer than other folk, and some folk, has never really even got properly paid or compensated or even recognized for the works that they have done or the works that they do. And so there's always a lot of unsung heroes, and some people, and some people just anonymously do what they do because they really don't want the credit. They don't really want the likes and the views and all of that kind of stuff. They just do it because they see the conditions of the human population in their country, in their state, their county, their cities, their neighborhoods. So big ups to each and every one of those individuals too who put their own personal biases and judgments to the side, even just for a day, to show some love and show some kindness to somebody who may not have received some that day. All right.
That's what's up. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Definitely. So yeah, I wanted to spend some time to talk about East 12th, like I said earlier. So that encampment, I've known people living in that encampment. The first time I met folks living in that encampment was probably in 2016. And there was one gentleman by the name of Bin Laden. He's a really tall Vietnamese cat, elder. And I've been told he's been out there since the 80s. And he was the very first person to live right there on East 12th and 14th Ave and behind the BK. And when we started doing work in the village, it was mostly Southeast Asian guys, a couple of ladies too, and one brother, Crooked Eyes, who was a rapper here in Oakland. He lived out there with them too. And they all lived in tree houses. So there used to be trees out there, and you couldn't even see the encampment because everyone lived in tree houses, and these tree houses were amazing. Anyways, the city found out that the tree houses were there, and what did the city do? Cut down the trees.
Cut the trees down.
And it left people in tents on the ground. Didn't move them, didn't offer them services, but cut down the trees. So this was in 2016. And then in 2017, we had signed a lease with the city of Oakland for $1 a year to build a tiny house village with 40 houses and wraparound services and whatnot. And as we were signing the lease, the city shut down that encampment and 6 other encampments and moved them all on the land that we just signed the lease for. And then that was a whole mess. But that actually forced us. I had already been working with these different encampments separately because a lot of them had beef with each other, and they were forced to live on that land. And we spent a year and a half actually trying to keep people from killing each other is what that looked like. And but I developed relationships with that community, and then that community actually ended up, even though they were divided, after all these years with all the trauma they have collectively been through from the city of Oakland, there actually is this very tight-knit community that takes care of each other. And so, like I said in other podcasts, in April of 2024, the city got $7.2 million from the California's Encampment Resolution Fund to shut down 3 encampments. All the folks over on Martin Luther King, at West Grand and 24th, everyone at Mosswood Park, and everybody on East 12th and 14th and 18th Avenue. And they got the money, didn't do nothing with it, and then wiped out Martin Luther King, and no one got housing. First they claimed
that's what happened to everybody over Martin Luther King?
That's what happened.
I was wondering all of a sudden one day.
They just gone.
It was gone, and the thing was, it's like, you get this the kind of feeling you get that I got personally, right? On one end, you're like, damn, I ain't seen the street look this clean in the last 5 years,
Long
time.
time.
At least, right?
Long time.
So on one end, it's like, it's good that it's clean and,
But where are all the people?
But then the other side was like, but where did they do with all of the people? Where did the people go?
And there was at least, 25, 30 people that lived there. And that eviction was so violent. The money that the city got was supposed to provide all 3 encampments with services, then transition them into a hotel for a year, and then transition them into permanent housing. So with Martin Luther King, they all got evicted. They claimed, they were telling the public that 5 people got not into a hotel because they didn't have the hotel, got into tough sheds on Mandela. Most of the people there had already been in Mandela, had already been to the Northgate Tough Sheds, had already been to the Wood Street Tough Sheds. They kept on getting evicted and ended up back on MLK, and this was going on for years. And so we're going to put a hold on that because a report just came out about what officially happened to those folks. So the city says that 6 people got into Tough Sheds, and
6 people,
Yes.
6 out of
at least 30.
Okay.
And that and then what started happening from August, September, October, November, December is as people scattered and joined other encampments or started, those encampments got evicted, and then those encampments got evicted. And so it was just from August to December has been just a series of trauma for that encampment and all the encampments it joined. And so then they were about to go after Mosswood, and they evicted Mosswood. They said they didn't. Well, we didn't really evict Mosswood, but you did, and everyone came back. And they were finna get ready to evict East 12th, and we were able to stop them because we're like, where's the 7.2 million?
Wow.
Like, what the heck? And so they had to slow their roll.
Just bump your brakes,
Right?
bump your brakes.
And then there was a whole bunch of stuff happening in the city with like the mayor and all the corruption around there, and then having a temporary mayor and this and that and the elections. So all of that kind of stopped them from moving forward. And plus the person who became the temporary mayor, Nikki Fortunata Bass, she's an ally of ours. And she was in that position for 4 months. And I tried to work that situation out as best I could, knowing that in that 4-month period, we can get some wins if we can actually get through this in 4 months. And so she had set up a situation between the village and East 12th and the city administration where they actually had to work with us and the residents to make sure that that grant was properly executed for them. And so the city claimed, and it keeps on changing its day. They said in June they're calling it a census, and there was only 80 people lived there. And they had a meeting on Monday, like, we did a census in December. What happened to June?
Wow.
Right? So their dates keep, and there was only 70 people living there. And now there is more than that, but they didn't know how many people were there. They found out how many people were there because I know how many people are there. My group knows how many people are there. There were 189 people that live at East 12th. And they kept on...
At East 12th?
Yes.
Wow, it's almost 200 people.
Yes. Because people are shacking up with each other. And why there's so many people is with every eviction that happened in East Oakland, because the city wasn't following its policy and providing people with shelter, as encampments got destroyed, as people's RVs got taken, people went to East 12th. And so what you have 6, 7, 8 people living in a house.
Right.
And when you look at East 12th, you see a house, but there are 2 more houses behind that house.
Right.
Right?
Kind of the makeshift,
It's a shanty. It's a shanty.
Shanty town.
And then you got all the RVs. There's more than one person. Nobody is living alone at East 12th.
Hey, who got the plants over there? Big up to
That's
the plant
Salvador.
Big up to the
That's
plant.
Salvador, man.
The plant person. They
Get you some plants. If you into plants, you can get 3 plants for $20.
Oh, I got it.
And he takes care of his plants. They're beautiful.
That's what
Yes.
he got a customer. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I
Go
need some
check him
plants.
out.
Because I say, wow, that's and so again, people don't know, right? What's really happening, what's really going on, but they really don't know the kind of monies, right? When you start talking about these billions and millions of dollars, right? Because people always say, well, they need to take all the people, they need to put them all in you know what I'm saying? None of this, no. But they don't, the average person doesn't realize the kind of monies that's attached to homelessness.
Yeah.
They don't. They really, like, this is
It's
the
a
first
huge industry.
Yeah, this is the first, but this is the first, but not last podcast that I've ever been on. Like I say, T-Fert and everything, but because Anita, because I know her 20 plus years, right, and know that she a real one, that been through things herself personally, her and her child, and the whole 9 yards, dealing with the city, dealing with, the politics, the bureaucracy, the foolery, and then also going to go stand up for other folks who were, having some difficulties and needed somebody just to be present, So it's a lot more than just that meets the eye when you just like, because none of our cities, none of them, we didn't grow up with, and I got some research and some data too, like, in California, like this many people are homeless. In Alameda County, this many people are homeless. Yeah. And I would love to, bring that the next time, because again, to see these numbers, if you don't cry, if it don't touch you, you don't have no more. You don't have no tender spot on you, and I know that there are some real hardcore people out here in this world, right? In this state, this county, this city, this neighborhood, some hard people, men, women, and children, hard as rocks. You understand me? But there are some people who's hard, but they still have a tender spot, right? So those who still have at least just to even see the numbers, right? To whereas you may not have the degrees or even the lived experience, but you might know how to make some potato salad. You know what I'm saying? You might know how to, make some cornbread or something. So sometimes people want to help and they want to contribute, but they may say, well, that's not going to help nobody because I only have, I'm on a fixed income. I'm on a limited income.
But it's that love.
Yeah, but
let me
love.
get back to East 12 because we don't have that much time
Go
left,
ahead.
and this is really important because they're about to get this eviction. This is
Whoa.
very convoluted what is happening. So because Nikki left city council, but now she's a supervisor, so we got her on that piece as leverage. Of course, everything that we had set up completely fell out from the bottom, and the city and the nonprofit started with their fuckery. They were supposed to use the list we had, and our list was so comprehensive. Like, you know how you say you're not supposed to share data? We specifically shared data so that there could be no ifs, ands, or buts about why did this person get this service? Why did this person get this kind of stuff that they need? Why is this, why did this person get left out? We know how many people here, we can name these people. We know who their emergency contacts are. We know the services they need. We know their medical conditions. We know their goals for the next 5 and 10 years.
Wow.
Out of 189 people at East 12, only 3 people didn't want housing. Everybody else wants help, right?
Wow.
And one of the things that the city likes to say is that people are service resistant, that they don't want what the city offers, and that's a lie. It's an easy way for them to say, we offered it, but they didn't want it.
Right.
No, they don't offer it, and people need it.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And so everything that we had set up fell. The city completely stopped communicating with us and just started playing games with us. And they started changing things. Oh, we're gonna have 80 people here. And then a week later, it was like, we're going to have 70 people here. And as of Monday, we're going to house, then it went down to 54. And we're like, what the heck? And then they came back up in a community meeting, like, okay, we're going to house 72 people from East 12. And they was like, well, what about everybody else? And according to city policy, you cannot destroy an encampment or remove someone's vehicle if you have not offered them services, including shelter. And what the city kept on saying on Monday night was, they may get services. We hope that there's some.
Right.
No, that means but are you still going to evict them? Yes, that encampment is being destroyed.
Yeah.
But we hope they're going to get stuff.
Wow.
You're in direct, violation of your own policy. But what that did is because a lot of community people came out, and they also were supposed to invite the residents of East 12, and they didn't. But I did. I made sure they got the flyers. So everyone was very surprised when everyone from East 12 started showing up. There was a lot of people from East 12, and they were asking a lot of questions. And I had asked the city, can you have a meeting just for the residents of East 12? And they won't. So I told everyone, come on to this meeting. They didn't tell you about it. They were supposed to. And the good thing about that was that it was a lot of community members, businesses, housed folks, organizations, and they could see firsthand that folks from the encampment had no idea what was going on. They were all getting different kinds of information from the city.
Yes.
And that what the city was saying didn't add up. The math wasn't mathing.
Math wasn't
right?
mathing.
And then what the city announced is that they're actually going to shut down from 14th Avenue to 19th Avenue for the next month to shut down East 12. And they're going to create a safe work zone. And a safe work zone.
Oh, they're going to fence the whole, get down around. They're going to fence the whole.
Which means nobody can get in to provide services,
Yeah.
to check into people.
Wow.
If you leave, you can't come back in. Like, it's really a dire situation. And then they said they're going to reroute all the East 12 traffic over on East 14th.
That's going to be chaotic.
Total chaos.
Yeah.
But, so, after I got home, someone sent me a link to the city just turned in their report, their grant report, for this quarter to the fund that they got, the Encampment Resolution Fund. And according to that fund, 0 people from MLK got temporary housing.
Wow.
0 people from MLK got permanent housing. And the night on Monday, they're like, "Oh yeah, we housed like 5 people." But I'm reading this report that you officially sent to the state of California.
Come on now.
And you said in this official report that you housed nobody.
Come on.
So you sitting here in the community, like, "Oh, we housed 5 people."
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, and we housed 27 people from Mosswood." And that was ridiculous because everyone is still at Mosswood or the surrounding area. Now they live in backpacks.
Now they're living in backpacks.
So we're very concerned. We're putting a call out to the community. We need folks out there to call your city. What the heck is going on? Because this is not going to solve anything. This is not going to solve anything at all.
And you Google or start Googling the budgets. Just Google budgets, because that'll probably be the quickest or easiest way for you to really have some data, right? So you understand it from a
the
data.
Math ain't mathing.
That the math ain't mathing.
At all.
These people don't want to be living these type of lifestyles, and some people begin to have, may start doing drugs or doing other things, right? In survival mode. So you have a lot of folk, who may be in transition, but they're going from transition to super survival.
And then with the hotel too, so they start talking about the hotel. So people got to be pat down when they come in. They have to be pat down when they came out. Why I like the idea that they use the extended stay was because every hotel room at the extended stay had a kitchen. Yes. Why did they use this grant money to? Remember, this is supposed to be a temporary for 1 year only. It's supposed to be a temporary shelter for the folks in the 3 encampment. They have a lease for 55 years. The city bought it, and the Housing Consortium in the East Bay is renting it from them for 55 years for a permanent housing development for unhoused folks. But they went and used this grant money to gut out all the kitchens, so there's no kitchens in any of the rooms no more. Which that don't make sense to nobody. It's like if you are trying to help people get to a place of self-sufficiency, to a place of normalcy, like cooking, and then everyone at East 12, most people at East 12 already cook for themselves. Like people already got kitchens in their homes. People are not just not taking care of themselves. And so to remove that piece of humanity from them and be like, no, we're going to provide you with meals. And because you've been in the shelters, when they provide these 2 meals a day, that's old ass food. Sometimes the food got mold on it. Sometimes the food don't even show up. So it's doesn't even make sense. And then the Housing Consortium of the East Bay, they're the ones who managed the Lake Merritt Lodge.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And for folks who don't know, a story it came out finally in the public, in the news, of just how poorly that space was ran with they make it sound like they provide all these services and programs. They provide nothing for people. And the staff is so negligent that so many people died at the Lake Merritt Lodge. And one brother who died, people hadn't seen him for days. There was a smell coming out of the room. They were the residents were telling the staff, we haven't seen him, and there's a smell coming out of his room. The staff just kind of dismissed it. And when they finally went into his room, he was already decomposing.
He was decomposing?
Damn. Okay. So my question is, how did they get this contract? And what is going to be put in place to make sure this? And I actually asked that question on Monday. How did y'all get? How did you hire them again?
Hired the same folks.
Same folks to run this new place, which is going to be 3 times bigger than the Lake Merritt Lodge.
Wow.
And what has been put in place in terms of oversight and in terms of making sure this doesn't happen again? And the answers that they provided, they weren't really satisfactory for the level of seriousness this is. But so the residents are asking for people to come and support them and to witness what's about to happen. So it starts on Monday. I'm going to be out there usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Other advocates are going to be there on other days. But if people have it in their heart to really see what's happening, we need folks out there documenting. Some of the residents just are going to refuse to move because none of this makes sense to them. This is not, and they're not telling the residents who's moving. And the evictions are starting on Monday, and it's going to last for a month.
A whole month.
A whole month they're going to spend evicting people.
So they're coming with the big trucks. Boy, I know that.
Right.
Boy, I know that. I know
we know the big trucks well.
The city, the public workers. Get to throwing everything away. And I don't know how much money, but like 30 million, I don't know, some millions that they spent on just encampment closures, right? So my whole deal is that the math is not mathing, but the amount of monies that the public don't know is being misutilized,
and
right?
missing. We've done two
And
audits.
missing.
We've done 2 audits. The money's missing. But we only got a few more minutes, and I want to leave out of here showing another organization that's going to be at 510 Day this Saturday. They're going to be on the Grand Avenue side of the lake. This is the Black Organizing Project, and they do so much good work in the schools around police brutality and accountability. Man, I can't even list it all. They just if there's an issue in the Black community of Oakland, these folks are on top of it. And so let's watch that last clip as we come out on the Black Organizing Project.
Woo!
No, on the very bottom under it says break, the Black Organizing Project, and the YouTube link.
Yeah, I was slid up on one of the events about a month ago, just on a fluke. It's cool.
Yeah, they're a great organization. Again, they're going to be on the Grand Avenue side of 510 Day. Plug in with them. No. BOP, yep. That is it.
Here in the town, the city of Oakland, live many vibrant and powerful stories of community, characterized by the unity, strength, resilience, and willingness to fight for the spirit of its residents. Oakland is known for its influence in shaping culture nationwide. This is where we reside. In a community where organizing has been at the forefront of leveraging power and mobilizing social movements, because every hour we are threatened by systems that institutionally blames its victims. From issues pertaining to civil and immigrant rights, labor unions, and police brutality, the voices of the community have stood against systematic subjugation as a leading influence for global liberty and justice for all. At BOP, we stand on this legacy. Together, we fight for equal voices. Black Organizing Project advocates for alternative choices of policing in our communities, ending school pushout, and advocating for economic justice for Bay Area families. It is time to own the power, break the cycle, and make a difference. Black Organizing Project is on the ground year-round, fighting at a grassroots level with Oakland residents to revive the spirit of the Black community through relationship building, leadership development, political education, and policy change. Through our Bettering Our School System campaign, we plan to end the criminalization of Black and brown students in OUSD, invest in alternative models of school safety, restructure the current policies and practices within Oakland Unified School District that do not take a restorative justice approach to school discipline. And it is a must that we bring the presence of school police to an end. As a collective, we the people exemplify power at its purest form. Martin Luther King once said, "Power at its purest form is love implementing the demands of justice." But at times it feels like it's just us who are denied the basic rights of livelihood. However, in this neighborhood, Black Organizing Project is uplifting the voice of the people and creating space for social, political, and economic justice for the betterment of not only Black families, but for us all to be equal. Through our multi-generational work, we are developing a new generation of leaders to teach, and we will not stop until true liberation is reached.